Peace and blessings. This is peace and gratitude. This is Reverend Dr. Kamara Falade Bande Renoir. And today is Thursday, July 24th, 2025. It is currently 5:56 p.m. The title of this video is Are You Titled or Entitled? Thursday, July 24th, 2025. The beginning. All right, my intention is accountability for myself. And my prayer is that those who are meant to hear this will have ears to hear and eyes to see. And that I come from a pure place, that my heart, my soul, my mind, my will, my emotions purge me like hyssop. Let it not come from a place of pettiness. May it not come from a place of anger, of emotionalism, but it comes from a place of a testimony and facts. That is my intention of accountability, not only for myself, but for the people that are involved. And it's a place of intent. It's just from a place of not intent, but a place of a pure intention. A pure intention. Let me stick to the facts. Don't allow me to get emotional. None of that. I'm currently reading the 4 agreements, and one of the agreements is to not make assumptions. And I'm not going to make assumptions. I believe that a person should, if they are alive, if they are still living, they should be able to tell their side of the story. So I'm not going to assume why things are being done. I'm just going to simply, with everything in me from a pure place, just give the facts. That is my prayer. All right. So first, I need to give you context of why I'm entitling, or I have not entitling. I have titled these videos, or I will be titling these videos, um, about are you titled or entitled? Because of the current events that's going on now. So if you don't know, you know probably just haven't engaged in social media or the media, um, or you just probably have better things to do, which I can completely understand. But the Coldplay concert with the CEO and the head of HR, where they were caught having an affair because they were at a Coldplay concert and the video cam was directed towards them, or was they aimed the camera at them, and the whole world found out that they were cheating based on their response when the camera was aimed at them. Here in Detroit, we had an incident weeks ago, where an employee, she stabbed her manager at the McDonald's, um, because the manager had sent her home for, I think it was like 2 days in a row, maybe even 3 days in a row. So she came back and she stabbed the manager while at work, while the manager was on duty. Like, she stabbed this woman broad daylight on the clock after she had been sent home. So and then the 28:12 sermon that I listened to yesterday. All of these things, what they have in common is about leadership. And we want a title. People love titles. People love titles because it makes them feel important. They get some type of recognition. They get some type of power, authority that otherwise they don't get in their lives, or they didn't get growing up. Um, and this is not for everybody. Let me slow down. Let me slow down. Some people like titles because it gives them power and authority that otherwise they don't have in their life. And they end up abusing the title and the authority and the position of leadership that they have. They didn't have that type of power or authority growing up. They don't have it in their current life. So as soon as they get a title, they abuse it. That's not for everybody. That's just for some people. And also with titles that we aren't taught is that with a title comes responsibility. So some people feel entitled when they get a title. They feel entitled that they should be treated a certain way, they should get certain privileges, certain perks. Um, they should have a certain seating preferences, like everything in the world should just revolve around them because they have this title. So they feel entitled. And what we're not taught is that when you get a title, it comes with responsibility, and your character must match the title. Because once you get a title and you publicly acknowledge that title, you refer to yourself as that title, you accept that title and the responsibility that comes along with it, your world changes. You are not allowed to do what you did before you got that title. It does not matter how unfair that may sound. It does not matter if that's right or wrong. That is just the world that we live in. We live in a world where people hold people to a higher standard when you have a title. When you're a manager, when you're a supervisor, when you're a CEO, if you're a pastor, if you're a reverend, if you're a teacher, if you're a police officer, if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, certain professions that have certain titles, your people look at you and they demand and they require you to be different. And oftentimes when we are in pursuit of these career titles or these professions or these titles in general, we don't really understand the magnitude of what we are pursuing. We don't understand the heaviness of the crown because we're not taught. We're not taught. It's not modeled to us that once you get that title, people are going to expect you to behave in a certain way. You can't act like everybody else. So with the Coldplay concert incident, that's why the CEO had to resign or they let him go. In the McDonald's incident, the young lady was saying how the manager was a gossip and she didn't exhibit, manager characteristics or manager behavior. She was a gossip and she looked down on people and she talked about people in a disparaging way. Now that doesn't justify her stabbing her manager and killing the manager, but in context of what I'm saying, of what these videos will be about, is that regardless of how we want to look at it, when you assume a title, people put you on a pedestal or they expect you to behave in a certain way. That's just what it is. You may not like it, or you may like it. You may be okay with it. Sometimes you feel like you can't just be human, and I totally get that, but that comes with the title. It comes with the title. That's what it is. So even when I became an ordained minister, a reverend, and when I went to school for my doctorate, it took me a while to even start signing my name differently, with my name attached to the title. It took me a while to publicly come out and in certain circles introduce myself with the title, because it took after it was all said and done, I had to really sit with myself and realize, like, you, not that I was out here anyway, but I realized the crown and the responsibility that I now, the added responsibility that I now had when I accepted the title of reverend, when I accepted the title of doctor. Like, yes, I have grace with myself, but at the end of the day, once I publicly, introduce myself with those titles, I can't have a bad day publicly. I can do it behind closed doors, but I can't have a bad day publicly because people expect me to live a certain way and behave a certain way and do things a certain way and speak a certain way and make certain decisions, and I'm not afforded the grace to have a bad day publicly. And being a teacher, I didn't realize it until, I had to come to terms with those titles. Being a teacher prepared me for that. Because even as a teacher, I realized that I was giving up a lot of, it was just certain things that I couldn't do anymore. It wasn't acceptable. And it wasn't really like I was doing it anyway, but it just wasn't acceptable behavior because I had the title of teacher. Okay. And little do people know, we have to take an oath here in the state of Michigan. When you become a licensed teacher, you do have to take an oath. Um, so that prepared me for the titles that I now hold. And that's just where we at with it. People do not expect the manager or the CEO to act like the employees. They just don't. And like I said, whether you agree or disagree, whether it's fair or not, that's just the world that we live in. So when I was listening to the sermon yesterday from the pastor of 2812 Church, and he said it, and I paraphrase it, he basically said, when people come out, when it is very clear, like you're not lying on the person, you're not making this up. It's very clear that they have a title, a position of leadership. They have accepted the title, they address themselves as such. Then at that point, they have given people permission to hold them accountable and hold them to a different standard. And we're not taught that when we become leaders, when we assume these titles. We're not taught that. We just, oh, I got this title, and we just so hyped up about it, and we just think about all the perks and all the privileges that we have, but nobody explains to us the character that is attached to that title that you're expected to live by, that people are really looking at you differently now. Because now they're expecting you to get things done. You're saying you're this particular person, then I expect your life to match the title. If I come to you and you're saying you're a CEO or you're this type of leader or this, I expect you to get things done. I expect you to deliver. I expect to see changes because you hold this title. And what he was saying in the sermon was that you are now giving people your consent to hold you accountable. When you say out your mouth, "Oh, I'm the boss of this and this of this organization," or "I'm the manager," or "I'm the supervisor," or whatever it may be, I have this title, then people are going to expect way more of you. And if you are not able to deliver, maybe you shouldn't have that title. And what he was saying in the sermon is, it's our responsibility to hold people to the title in which they are confidently describing themselves as or walking in. that it's not judging. He did mention in the sermon that it's not judging no more. No one's judging you anymore. It's not considered judgment anymore, because you have said you're the boss. Your title is such and such. You're the supervisor, you're the manager, you're the team lead, whatever it is. You have admitted openly that that's what you are. So when people start uh checking you or giving you constructive criticism or holding you to a standard, you cannot get angry, and you can't turn around and say, oh, you judging me, you judging me. No, it's not about judging no more. You accepted this title, and people are expecting you to behave in a certain way. They're expecting you to get things done. They are expecting results, because this is what you have advertised yourself to be. I'm laying the foundation, everybody. So stick with me. I'm laying the foundation. So we have to be very mindful of chasing after these titles. Yeah, we're looking at the money. We're looking at the prestige. We're looking at the fame. We're looking at the attention. We're looking at the perks that we can get. But nobody really sits us down and tells us that your life is not your own anymore. Then now you have to move differently. You got to talk differently. You just got to be different than everyone else, because that's what's expected of you, whether you like it or not. All right. So what does this have to do with this video, and what I'm putting and what I will put out later on? Since April of 2023, I have been bullied by our neighborhood block club president. And I had this feeling, this in my spirit to put this out with receipts and all the evidence that I collected, but I just didn't know how to do it from a place where it wasn't petty, it wasn't filled with emotion, it wasn't catty, it wasn't a mean girl thing. Like, I wanted to come from the most purest place that I could come from, even though I have stacks and stacks of evidence that I'll share in other videos. And finally, after listening to that sermon yesterday, I felt like, okay, now is the time, because this person, she has made it very clear that that's her role and her responsibility. She has vocalized it, so I'm not giving her a title that she did not give to herself. So because she has been vocal with this and has given herself this title, I am now allowed to legally hold her responsibility. I am legally allowed to, and when I use the word legally, I mean it in the context of legally, like the laws of the land, because block club associations are supposed to have a constitution and bylaws. I don't know if ours does or not, and that's neither here nor there. So legally, I can talk about this on that level, and legally on a spiritual level, because once you come out and you accept and you vocalize that you have assumed this title, this position of leadership, then people can now hold you accountable and expect you to behave accordingly to that title or to that position of leadership. So let's start from the beginning. In 2018, and I will not give names. I'm not going to give identifying information. I'm not going to do that. I will just always refer to her as the block club president. And any other names that I give, it will just always be with their first initial, the first initial of their name, or the first initial of their first and last name. I'm not giving names to protect people's identity. So in 2018, I moved in this neighborhood, and we work together, and I'm going to tell my faults. I'm going to be accountable about me. I'm not going to make assumptions about her. Clearly, if she listens to this video, she comes across this video, she can tell her side. I'm not making assumptions. She can tell her side. I'm only going to speak from my experience with dealing with her, and my role in the situation. So in 2018, I moved over here, and this was both of our neighbors. This was both of our neighbor, if I'm saying that right. Both of us shared this neighbor. She lived on one side of this neighbor, and I lived on the other. So the neighbor, he and I had a shared driveway, and he had dangerous dogs, and he would chain his dogs to the side of the house. So clearly it became a safety hazard for me. I couldn't go into my side door. I couldn't go into my backyard. Um, to Also, I had to be mindful of throwing out the trash if the dogs were chained on the side of the house. Okay. So at the time, she had just had a baby, and as any mother, you're thinking about, my child's gonna grow up. I want my child to be able to play outside, play out, play in the backyard. And these dogs are dangerous. So we formed a relationship. We started working together in order for these dogs to be taken out of the custody and care of the neighbor. So she worked with the Detroit, the Humane Society, and also the animal control in Detroit. She also was in contact with the manager. We have districts in Detroit, and each district has a manager. So she would call them. She kept in contact with them. So that's what she did on her end. So on my end, I will call the police. I will call animal control if the dogs got loose. And I would document the date and time that I called, the officer that I talked to. So we were working together collaboratively with that. So eventually, I decided to. This was like 2018, 2019. So I decided to go to a city council meeting. And I went to a city council meeting. I took off work. I went to a city council meeting, and I talked to the city council person, the person that was our city council person over our district. He was clearly there at the meeting, and I had 2 minutes to speak. As soon as I finished speaking, he connected me with his assistant. The assistant got my information. Um, he emailed me, and about a month later, about a month after that incident, a month after I attended the city council meeting, the Detroit Police Department came and raided the house and took the dogs. So we were happy about that. We worked together. Boom, boom. So I made a comment one day. I said, other communities that have black clubs, they have a better response with police. They have a better rapport with the police. They can get things done faster. They have a better rapport with the city when you have a neighborhood black club or a neighborhood association. It's when it's legal, it's registered. It's just you get things done faster when you have a block club. So I was like, maybe we should get a block club going on this street. Um, I don't know if it was already a block club on this street. After talking to a neighbor, found out that it was. I was like, we just really should get one, because it will just help in the long run, and we'll just get better police response, and it can just be better for the neighborhood. We can get so much more resources and things like that. So she agreed. So it was another neighbor on the block that she knew, she went to school with, and she had called me and we were on a three-way, and she was telling him about the block club idea, and she was like, I'm the president, talking about herself. She's the president. um I was made the secretary, and I don't recall specifically what position she wanted to that she had offered the other neighbor. Now I knew enough about black clubs that wasn't legal. That you're supposed to first talk to everybody in the neighborhood, everybody on the block. Like, you're supposed to first of all determine the boundaries of the block club. Like, what, the block club is going to be from this street to this street. And then once you do that, and we had decided that the block club would just be for the one block that we were on, from the corner to the other corner. It was just our block that we currently live on. And then after you decide that, you're supposed to go talk to all the neighbors. Now, obviously, you can't expect 100% participation with anything, but you're supposed to at least inform the neighbors and give them the choice to decide whether they want to participate or not. I knew enough about black clubs that I knew that much. And that once the neighbors whoever decided they wanted to join or was interested in a block club, we were supposed to then vote. It wasn't supposed to be no self appointment. You were supposed to vote. So I knew that much. So I was taken aback when I was on the three-way and she announced herself as the president. And I was in my feelings, because I was just like, I came up with the idea, and it's like, you just made yourself president. But I had to check myself. I said, wait a minute. I had to get myself all the way together. And I had to tell myself, like, girl, at the end of the day, it ain't about titles. Y'all work together. She did her part, you did your part with getting the dangerous dogs taken off the block. That's all that matter. At the end of the day, our common goal is that we live in a neighborhood that's safe, that's clean, and that people feel safe and want to come home to after a long day at work or wherever they at. I said, I had to tell myself, just stay focused on the end game. Stay focused on the goal. Girl, get out your feelings, get out your ego, all that title stuff, get out of it. And so I did. Like, this is how I talk to myself, like, because I'm always looking at what's the bigger picture, what's the end game, and that was the end game. So it don't matter who got the title, it just don't matter. Just we working together to make sure that when we come home at night, when we lay our heads on our pillows, we live in a neighborhood that we're comfortable in, that we can take pride in, and we're okay. We feel safe, and that's what it is. So I was like, get over your feelings, girl. Just stop it. Stop with the foolishness. So I was just like, okay, whatever. But at the time, I knew that how she went about it, it wasn't legal when you're talking about establishing a block club, like a block club that is registered with the city and is recognized with the city as a neighborhood association. Like, literally, this is a legal entity. A block club is a legal entity. Like, you have a constitution, you have bylaws, you have officers, you're supposed to vote. Like, it is a legal entity. And I knew that much at that time. So I was just like, okay, whatever. That's what it is. Okay. So he agreed to be a part of it and to assume whatever position it was that she offered. I hold myself accountable because I knew it wasn't right to begin with. And I should have checked it then. So I got to hold myself accountable that the way we went about it was not legal. It was not legal. As far as the appointment of officers, it was not legal. So, The next step was, and it was really out of order because this should have been the step before, like I said, electing the officers or appointing officers. So after that, I remember it was back to school time. This was in 2019 because I remember, because I was starting at a new school. So this was in 2019. Or was it 2018? I gotta look at my notes because I got a folder. So I remember going back to school, and I remember at the time I had like a basement because I was still teaching at that time. I was still teaching, and I had like a basement full of school supplies because the school I had worked at a few years ago, it had closed. And I mean, I had like so much, I had just a lot of school supplies in the basement. So I was like, okay, well, I talked to her. I said, school's getting ready to start. This is a perfect way to knock on the neighbors' doors, let them know that we're interested in starting the block club. And this could be our first activity, or, our first, if you want to call it activity. I can't find a better word for it, but this can be our first community outreach that we're doing for the block club. So we went to we knocked on the neighbors' doors and we introduced ourselves. We said what we were going to do. I told them, I'm a teacher, and I asked them, I was like, do you have any, grandchildren, nieces or nephews, or even a child that is going to be starting school and they need school supplies? And so I just took a note of the different houses that we knocked, the doors that we knocked on. If they said yes, and I asked them like how many, and I just wrote it down, okay. So then I went back after that. I don't know if she came with me or not. I don't recall, but I kept my word. Like all of the houses where people was like, yes, I either have a child going back to school or a niece, a nephew, a grandchild. I went back and I delivered. I gave them school supplies like I said I was gonna do. So that was our first community, I guess you could say, outreach thing that we did, for the block club. Now, mind you, we didn't officially register it at all. It hadn't gotten to that point yet, but we were still doing things in the community. Like we had an elder across the street. So in the wintertime, I would go over there and shovel her snow, or in the fall time I would help her, like I helped her to like rake her leaves. We had a situation where the city just took forever to pick up the bulk pickup, and I mean it was like garbage just piled up, trash just kept piling up on our block, like even to the point where it was blocking the sidewalk. Like you couldn't even walk down the sidewalk. It was just so much trash. So one day I decided, I did as much as I could trying to clean it up, like putting a lot of that stuff in like trash bags, like cleaning it up so it wouldn't just look so disgusting until the city could come and pick it up. So, it was just little things that, you know, I was doing, she was doing, even though the Block Club Association wasn't officially registered, you know, to just say, like, it didn't make any sense of knocking on these people's doors and saying that we are interested in starting a block club and then we don't do anything. So we were doing little things like that. But at that point, it wasn't officially registered with the city. It was just simply a word of mouth type of thing. It was grassroots, and as the saying goes, now our boots was on the ground, and we was just getting it going. So that's the beginning. That is the beginning. I had to tell you that because that is the beginning. That is the beginning. And then things changed. The bullying began. I am not going to make assumptions about why it started. I'm not going to give you that. I'm just going to, in the next set of videos, give you the evidence of how the bullying began. But you call yourself, you have assumed the role as the neighborhood block club president. But this is how you're treating someone that lives on the block. So that will be the next video. So I just want to thank you for listening. Once again, my intention is accountability. If this is what you are going to call yourself, then you need to explain to the people that are in this neighborhood that know you as the block club president. You need to explain to the people why you are treating someone who lives on this block this way. Because this behavior from the neighborhood block club president has been happening to me since April 2023, and it is now July 2025. So thank you so much, and I will be back with the next video of evidence. I am not lying on this person. I'm going to provide you with evidence. So I will speak to you in the next video.